If you've ever wondered what hydroponic indoor garden would actually be worth it, Rise Gardens or Gardyn with a Y, I've been growing both for years and I have all the answers you need. Hi everyone, my name is Catherine. This has been a long-awaited and highly requested video ever since I did get another garden. And I really have learned a lot growing all types of vegetables and fruits that I could possibly grow and going through all of the maintenance cycles for both. When I first discovered what hydroponic gardening was and that I could grow fruits and vegetables in my own home, in my own apartment, my jaw was on the floor. I thought that was insane. I actually fixated on it for about 4 days doing research nonstop on hydroponic gardens. The idea of finally being able to grow my own fruits and vegetables and that I didn't have to wait for a house, I didn't have to worry about the stresses of trying to manage a balcony garden or something like that with unpredictable weather, unpredictable heat. I just thought that was such a blessing to be able to do in the first place and have all of that produce be so fresh and organic, no pesticides. You know exactly who's touched it, you know exactly where it's come from. All of that sounded like amazing to me. And then as I started learning more, I had to have one. When I first was thinking about getting my own hydroponic garden, I knew I wanted to put something in the space near my front door in this hallway area, which is kind of a smaller area. So that's why I went with the garden in the beginning. And then exactly a year later, I moved stuff around in my apartment, realized I had enough space to get another hydroponic garden and really wanted the opportunity to grow things that were bigger and wanted to grow even more. So then I finally invested in my second hydroponic garden and I got a Rise Garden. Rise Gardens and Gardens are two of the biggest on the market for hydroponic gardens, and I did a ton of research and landed on these two. And since I've been growing with both of them for so long, I thought I'd give you a detailed comparison, pros and cons of each, and help you figure out what makes the most sense for you to buy. Design, let's talk about the design and size first. Garden with a Y is sleek. It's more of an art piece, really. All the plants grow out at a diagonal, and it's about 24 inches wide, 12 inches going out, and then about 5'4" height. I did get the garden in the first place because of how beautiful it looked and the fact that I was able to just fit it in a 2 by 1 foot area that was perfect for the amount of space I had at the time. Rise Gardens is more modular, really looks more like a sturdy piece of furniture. I really love the white and wood tones that this one has. And the plants grow on shelves, so then they will grow vertically, straight up. Rise Gardens is a bit bigger. My research says it's 36.25 inches wide, 16.25 inches deep, 39.5 inches high. They both have very different looks, so what blends better into your space is really a matter of personal preference, but I think both of them look really stunning, so let's talk about the actual growing experience. Rise Garden and Gardyn both have apps that you can use to control the lights and the watering. And that's one of the best things about hydroponic gardens in the first place, is the fact that I don't need to worry that it has enough lights. I don't need to worry that it has enough water besides me filling up the tank every week or less. I always know it's getting enough water and I always know that it's getting enough light. I actually have both of these set to turn on really early in the morning, so I'm still asleep. I have the lights dim and then turn off completely by sunset because they're both in spaces that I use a lot. The water capacity of the tank in Gardyn is 5 gallons. The one in Rise is a bit bigger. I believe it's about 8, but each of the shelves can store about a gallon of water. For the Rise Garden, I also have the water pump set to run at increments. I don't have it running all the time. I have it set to run and then it will run for 30 minutes and then the water will stop and then it'll do it the next time it needs to. With Gardyn, it does a similar thing. The watering cycles are shorter because it is a smaller unit. It doesn't need as much water flowing through, but you do have to fill it a lot more. And that one turns on for about like 5 to 7 minutes every maybe like 4 or 5 times a day. Since the lights and water are automated, I don't really rely on the apps for either of these too much. I kind of just let it do its thing and focus most of my energy on actually taking care of the plants and making sure that I'm checking in on them and then planting new seeds as I need to. Day-to-day maintenance and care, this is probably one of the biggest considerations that you have to make. With any hydroponic garden, really, you have to monitor the plants. You need to check in on them, make sure that nothing has gone wrong, there's no pests, diseases. Get rid of any like excess plant matter, trim the roots, that's a big one. And the most fun part, harvest once they're ready. Trimming the roots is important so water is able to flow freely and that it doesn't clog any other areas of the system. With garden, it happens a lot. And I will say that I'm someone who likes to be more hands-off with my gardening. And I have tested the boundaries of how far I can push it without having to trim anything. And with garden, I have run into issues where at one point I've gotten plants stuck in one of the pods, couldn't get it out, and it almost broke through one of the pod sections. With Rise Gardens, with how it's built too, you're able to be a lot more hands-off with it. You can leave it for a very long time. Not the best practice, but you can probably leave it for months without trimming the roots. And when you have to, it's super easy to cut around and just get rid of it. With garden, those roots go everywhere. And there's so many little sections inside of the garden tubes and then within the pods that it becomes quite a pain to clean if you're not monitoring that pretty diligently, at least like every 1 or 2 weeks. In both situations, I've had plants just start growing wildly, which has its pros and cons. But I think for this part, it's important to consider like how much are you like going to be on top of your maintenance and how much do you want to deal with like the consequences if you aren't. Let's move into fully cleaning and upkeep. With garden, the roots do grow in and out of the cups that they're in. They've even grown as far as into the tank, even though I thought I trimmed them. Sometimes you forget to cut a few or just forget to check something that is harder to lift out. Like I used to have these cherry tomatoes that needed to be basically strapped in so that it wouldn't break, and it was producing so much, but it was very hard to get to the roots and cut them. That was something that the roots ended up going all the way to the base, and at one point my pump of my garden actually broke, probably about like the maybe 1.5 year mark, which was a lot sooner than I thought, but getting a new pump is pretty easy. I think the issue with the pump was that roots had gotten into places where they shouldn't have with the pump. When you have to clean the entire garden at once, you have to take everything apart. Each of those tube things come into sections, smaller little sections. And since there's a lot of crevices in each little thing of those, you kind of have to like soak it in water and maybe some citric acid to kind of break up anything that's on it. And then I had to also buy these baby bottle cleaners that can get into the crevices, because even though I have small wrists, I cannot fit my hand inside those things, which make it a lot harder to clean. With Rise Garden, pretty much everything stays contained within the trays. Yes, the roots will get tangled with other roots, but it doesn't really matter. You can cut them all off and just make sure you're leaving like 2 to 3 inches of root per plant, and they're gonna do well and probably even do better now that you've trimmed them. Since there's trays and there are multiple levels, you can do it section by section, and overall it's immensely easier to clean because there aren't crevices for roots to get into. You can basically just get rid of all the water on a tray, wipe it down, and there's not much scrubbing needed. I think I said before that the daily maintenance was the most important, but scratch that. Actually, the yield and output is as equally important, if not more important, because that's the reason you got your garden. That's probably the reason you wanted to have a hydroponic garden in the first place. So let's get into that. Both hydroponic gardens can provide a surprisingly good amount of food. The key for me is that since both have plant holes, seed pod sections that are fairly close together, I like to make sure I'm spacing things out. Things that you know are gonna get bigger, make sure it has enough space, and then you can put in between things that will probably stay small, like herbs. For both gardens, I try to do that, mix and match what I think will take a lot of space versus a little space. And some fruits and vegetables just really do need a lot more space. Certain plants also will not grow roots very long, and then some will grow them crazy long or crazy big. Those are all things that you learn, but also good things to be mindful of as you strategically plan how to place things in your garden. With garden, the roots are smushed into that pod. Here, they at least have space to move this way, spread out horizontally. So in my garden, I tried to grow chamomile, and it got to the stage of where it was all green, but it never actually flowered. And I waited so long. I waited about I think like 7 months or like something insane like that, and it never worked. And the reason was that it just needed more space, and that wasn't the right environment for it to flower. And then I tried it in my Rise garden, and it got massive. Probably grew too much, but I had so many chamomile flowers, and since I was able to harvest them and dry them, like I still have them in storage. Another reason why I wanted to get a Rise garden as my next garden was because I wanted to grow other things, specifically things with bigger root spaces. Since the roots can grow a bit more, you're able to grow things like beets, radishes, things like that. Just sounded so cool to me. And I have grown radishes and beets, and they have been very good, so I feel like I already got what I wanted out of this garden. I've also been able to grow other things here, like green beans, lemon cucumbers. I've done a lot more experimenting. I do experimenting of things I can grow in both gardens, but this one, you can grow things that have a bigger size because they'll have more of a chance to get growing. The one thing about Rise Gardens is that plants will grow past the level. Even though there is this shelf right here, this plant does not care whatsoever. Yeah, I mean, why should they? So I even tried to grow zinnias, which were a type of flower. It did the same thing, grew wildly, grew so tall. I really tested the boundaries with that one. I think a better way to manage it growing past the level that it's at is to trim the roots earlier and more often. And I think that will signal to the plant that it should probably just focus on producing fruit or flowers. Since the Rise garden is a bit bigger, you can grow more food for the space. A really important consideration for both is be really mindful of the seeds that you get, especially if you're trying your own seeds. If you get seeds that are really good for small spaces, container gardening, or like dwarf plants, you're gonna be able to produce a lot more food for the space that you do have. And then if you're strategic about where you place those plants and what type of plants you're growing, you can really maximize what you're getting out of your hydroponic garden. And of course, for both, since you're growing it in your home, since you know exactly what it's touched, how it's grown, and it all grows organically, cleanly, the taste and quality for both is amazing. And as you learn more about gardening, you'll know little things that you can do to produce even better tasting plants. When you're considering what garden to buy, obviously cost is an important factor. I feel like for hydroponic gardens, you put the investment up front, and then after that, it's really up to you and up to you how you want to manage it going forward. You can try things like your own seed, your own growing medium. Or if you don't want to think about that stuff, you can get it all on a subscription. I would really pay attention to the space you have. They're not too different in size, but understand which one might fit better in your space, which one might be a better size for your needs, for the size of your family. Also, what do you want to grow? Do you want to grow things? Do you want to have the opportunity to grow things with bigger roots? Or do you want to just focus on maybe smaller things? I love how the garden looks like an actual living, breathing art piece. And with Rise Garden, I love the types of things that I'm able to grow. I'm able to grow things in bigger quantities. I'm able to grow more of it. Things like lettuce grow so fast because it has space to grow and it has everything it needs right there to do so. With the garden, it has the size of the pods to kind of tell it to stop growing and maybe start producing something. With the Rise Garden, the roots kind of grow unbounded, so there's nothing to really tell them that unless you trim them. So it's probably my fault that some of these have just grown crazy. Also, I think these seeds they're not even like container variety, so I think they're gonna take up as much space as they possibly can. I guess that's probably my fault. Overall, I hope everyone who wants a hydroponic can get one, especially one of these big units that you can have for such a long time and that can keep producing for your household. Either way, you're making a great investment into yourself and what you eat and into the environment. So you really can't go wrong. Check out my TikTok and YouTube for more gardening, self-care content. I have a bunch of videos on indoor gardening, hydroponic gardening, and all the random things that I've grown. Strawberries, beets, cucumbers, kale. I guess those are the more popular things that I've grown, but I've grown some weird things as well. Lemon cucumbers. Again, my name is Catherine. Please like and subscribe if this was helpful. Comment which hydroponic garden you would like to buy, Rise Gardens or Gardyn with a Y. Or if you already have a hydroponic garden, let me know what your favorite thing to grow is. I'm always looking for new things to try. Hope this was helpful. If you have any more questions, let me know.